أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم أم حسبت أن أصحاب الكهف والرقيم كانوا من آياتنا عجبا إذ أوى الفتية إلى الكهف فقالوا ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا فضربنا على آذانهم في الكهف سنين عددا ثم بعثناهم لنعلم أي الحزبين أحصى لما لبثوا أمدا نحن نقص عليك نبأهم بالحق إنهم فتية آمنوا بربهم وزدناهم هدى.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another episode of Boys in the Cave. This podcast is proudly sponsored by Night Watchman Sports and Muslim Youth Today. I'm joined by my fellow co-host, Josh. What's good, bro?
Yeah, not too bad, bro. We've got a very special guest with us today.
We do. Let's just get straight into it, I guess. We have Shaykh Wael Ibrahim. The Shaykh, as most of you know, is an Islamic speaker, is a scholar, and is founder of MentorPlus, and is here with us to discuss a very important topic, which is pornographic addiction. So, Shaykh, welcome.
Thank you, brother. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So, I think a lot of us wanted to know, because this issue, you see the majority of people shun down or shame people about this issue. And even people nowadays come out and say, oh, brother, this isn't an issue that we should be talking about. They come up, they try to undermine the agenda. So for you to step in, Tabarakallah, to be this voice in helping this group of people that are being marginalized by this epidemic. So I want to start by asking, what were the significant events for you that started this journey?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Yes, when I started talking about that subject, few people were objecting. Few people advised me not to talk about this issue. Some of them were learned people in the community. But subhanallah al-azim, like if this issue could cause a person to end his life, then when are we going to talk about it? If this issue could destroy families, destroy relationship between husbands and wives, then when are we going to talk about it? So I felt that there is a huge gap that needed to be filled in this area. And this is where I sneaked in and tried to do something. So the first significant situation that happened that makes me take the research really seriously was this 18 years old boy, which I made mention of as well in my book, 50 Plus Shades of Hope, who came to my office, I think 8 or 9 years back now, and he wanted to commit suicide. Why? Because he said, I'm addicted to pornography. And I was like, I was actually literally laughing. Because I thought he was joking or he's an insane person. I didn't...
What were your impressions of pornographic addiction in that time?
You know, back in the days when we were students and we had access to these things, but it wasn't like addictive. Like, we talk about addiction later, but it wasn't like that intense, that compulsive, because the accessibility was less. We had it on VHS tapes, magazines, and these things are very difficult to bring into your home back in the days. So it was less accessible, that's why it was less addictive. But now it's available on your fingertip. So when this boy came, I couldn't fathom that pornography would turn into something that compulsive. I didn't know yet. So that's why when the boy ensured that he is reflecting over suicide, I told him, you know what, you just wait, give me a chance to work out how to help you. And I started from there. I started researching the topic, contacting mentors in the area, and I found that a huge number of organizations around the world who had contributed to this issue, and none of them were Muslims back then. Later on, I think an organization or two started talking about it from an Islamic perspective.
Yes.
But the majority who does work in this area are Christian, committed Christians and non-Muslims. And I was like, I was really intrigued by this because we are Muslims. We have a religion that is full of solutions to our problems, and I decided to take that path. Yeah.
Why do you believe there is that shame between something that has this enormous effect on the community, on enormous effect on a person's well-being for the rest of his life? Why do you feel there is that shame to discuss it openly and frankly?
SubhanAllah, this is one of the things that I've learned later on, that those experts in the field, they say that it's easier for a substance addict to actually reveal his addiction to someone than a porn addict. I think it's due to the fact that it is very secretive in the first place. Like, this is how addiction works. Once you are hooked on pornography, how did you get into it in the first place? You were alone, on your cell phone, on your computer, on your device. Immediately the activity is registered as performing this act when you are alone with your laptop. So this is how the addiction starts. And unlike substance addictions where people could actually inject each other, where they could sit together and exchange cigarettes and whatnot, so the nature of the activity itself is secretly done, and that's why there is a feel of shame and guilt for a person to come out and share that secret with somebody else. And subhanAllah, it was only when I started talking about it where people start stepping forward and sharing their secrets. So that's why I feel that there is extra need from our learned people in the community to actually open up a platform for people to feel comfortable to share their secrets so that they can get some solutions.
Do you think it might also be that just because of the nature of what the addiction, what it's sort of constituted of, it's sexual addiction, right? So is it because of our Islamic faith that adds another extra layer of shame, do you think?
Absolutely. Religious in general. So not only Muslims, even Christians, committed Christians, they also feel shame because it's not also allowed in the faith. Yeah.
Not just shameful in a society sense, but also in front of God.
Yes, you feel ashamed. You feel many people will think that they are hypocrites, and I wanted to seize that opportunity to tell them, you are not hypocrite. Those who think that they are hypocrites because outwardly they perform their prayers, they go to the masjid, the mosque, some of them they give a khutbah, some of them they memorize the Quran, some of them are hijabi and niqabi, so they feel that it does not befit to commit some acts. I'm telling them, you are not a hypocrite because you are still resisting, you're trying to fight that act and to correct it. And hypocrisy, the definition of hypocrisy is to pretend, what you're not, what you don't believe in. You pretend to be someone that you're not. That's the definition of hypocrisy. So it's not hypocrisy, it's just something that you are addicted to, and you just need to find out a professional help, inshallah.
It's interesting. The religiosity ironically causes people not to they want to maintain this impression on the people. Like before I fell into this addiction, I was, praying regularly. I was giving dawah, helping out in giving charity. I set myself in this standard, and then once now I find myself caught up in this addiction. If I admit it to people, then all that effort, all that work, all those years, they just get lost. I feel like that barrier of religiosity prevents people from actually
I agree 100%.
being healed.
I agree 100%. And that's why we need to tell the people that, subhanallah al-azim, you have to be yourself. You have to be very honest with yourself. Yeah. You're not heading toward any good direction anyway by being silent. And if a person knew about your struggle, don't expect that people wanted to shame you. Don't think that people would point fingers at you and say, ha ha ha, you are, you pretended to be a religious person, now look at you. And that brings us also the very important point that you have to choose the right person to reveal this secret to. Don't just go with anyone and open up. You have to go to a trusted person, a person that you know for sure who would do his best or her best to help in your struggle. Being silent would mean that you will end up your life in that state, because you can never beat up pornography on your own. You can never beat up this addiction on your own. It's nearly impossible.
So it's necessary to have someone to confess to, or sort of
It's
someone.
I don't want to use the confession.
Yeah. That's the wrong
Because-
word.
No, but it is very important to seek out help by telling someone that I have an issue with pornography. I tried on my own to break free, but I keep going back to it. I repent to Allah and then I fall again. I repent and then I relapse. What do I do? The more we have people in the community who are aware of how to treat porn addicts, instead of telling them it's haram, because everyone knows it's haram already. We don't need to just repeat that phrase. We know it's haram. What do we do? They are asking. How do we break free from this? So we need to learn as much as possible about this, the science of addiction and how to treat people from addiction, because there is a huge difference between addiction and sin. A sin is something that I'm intentionally doing it while I know it's wrong. I'm intentionally enjoying it. That's why the scholar said your happiness while committing the sin is even bigger in the sight of Allah than the sin itself, because you're doing it to enjoy. But those addicts, they are going to the sin knowing it's haram, but they cannot resist the temptation. They are trying to stop it. They know it's haram, but they can't. They keep on going back by the force of the addiction in their brain.
That is scary.
And that's totally different. That's why I said you're not a hypocrite. Doing your best to quit, you just can't. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is observing these struggles. But what are the chances for you to break free? What are the chances for you to die while committing the sin? So be careful. You have to seek out help quickly, right away. Approach the right person, and inshallah, there is hope. There are people I know personally who are living now a pure life free from porn after being addicted for 16 years, for example.
So you're saying that when you talk about the addiction, it has to be a different conversation to sin. So you can't talk about the addiction and sin at the same time.
Like, for example, if lying is a sin, is one of the most disliked, one of the most abhorred, sin in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the sight of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you lie, simply repent. You don't have to go to an imam, tell him I'm lying, and what do I do? You know what to do, not to lie, and repent from that. But now if you are addicted to something, what's the definition of addiction? Addiction is something that you keep on doing it on a regular basis, and every time you try to quit, you fail. Every time you try to stop it, you fail. You stop it for a day, 2, a week, month, but you keep going back to it. That's addiction. That requires some help.
Professional help.
Professional. So admitting your mistake is 50% of the cure. To admit that you have an issue, because I get a lot of emails from sisters in particular who have found out about their husband's addiction to pornography. And one of the reasons why they are still addicted is that they do not believe that they are addicted. They do not believe that actually pornography is a problem. They think that it's a guy thing. And since when Islam encourages us to do whatever everybody else is doing? You understand what I mean? Yani, who said that the majority wins with every negative behavior? Yani, if everyone is doing haram, should we follow it? In fact, Allah said in the Quran, وَقَلِيلٌ مِّنْ عِبَادِيَ الشَّكُورِ. Very few of my servants are thankful. Should we also be ungrateful because the majority are ungrateful? You understand what I mean? So unless you admit your addiction and accept that you have an issue, there is no cure whatsoever. There is no one is going to help you. Even Allah himself will not help you, because Allah said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah will never change the condition of any group of people unless they change what is within themselves. So once you take a step forward towards that change, Allah will intervene. Allah immediately will support. But if you keep saying that everybody's doing it, don't worry about it, then how would you get help at all?
That's true. I want to explore the aspects of the addiction a bit later in the episode, but I want to bring the attention to the root causes of this addiction. So not majority people that are usually, they see this on a surface level, they think, oh, they're just a higher energy or higher resolve for sexual energy or something like that. But surely there's other reasons why people end up in this situation where they're in this vicious cycle of engaging in the sin and then relapsing. So I believe one of them is, they just been accidentally stumbled upon it. Like we've all been through high school. We've all been with people in our grades that have been exposed to this at some stage, and alhamdulillah, for people that haven't been caught in this sin, they've been able to identify that this is wrong, and they've attached this sin away from the ibadat and all these elements of that Islam promotes. But I want to ask you, Shaykh, if you can expand on the reasons.
Yeah. So you've mentioned a couple of them already. People at school used to exchange these pictures, and as a result, people became curious. And with the rise of internet, the people started heavily addicted to pornography. To me, the biggest reason is that, and this is for Muslims now. We are talking about the Muslim community. The biggest reason why people became addicted to pornography is the lacking of self-protection from the start. You're not creating boundaries around you from the start to protect yourself from anything that could destroy your iman, because pornography snatch your iman from within. I'm making this public statement to everyone who's listening to us and everyone who's addicted to pornography, everyone who's aware that he's addicted to porn or she is addicted to porn, because pornography addiction doesn't know the difference between male and female. So there are males and females who are addicted to porn as well, who are listening to us now, right? I challenge them to come forward and tell me that their iman is up high.
Because of engaging with
There is no iman. There is no iman whatsoever. They know this. They know that they pray like zombies. There's no feelings. They read the Quran like zombies. There's nothing whatsoever. They look like Muslims. They appear in the masjid like Muslims, but internally they are dead. Because of what? Because of pornography. I get these reports like every few days from people sharing, and they will say that as soon as we say Allahu Akbar, we see pornography. The flashbacks comes in their brain, and they start praying while seeing pornography in their brains, imagining the scenes that they have watched. So unless you start taking the necessary steps to break the cycle and introduce new habits, new healthy habits, there is no hope. So one of the root cause is that from the start, we haven't protected ourselves from anything that could destroy our iman. One of them is the loose usage of the internet, the loose use of Facebook, accepting anyone and anything, send us a friend request. You are a brother, you are married, Allah had blessed you with a lawful wife, and when a sister on the outside of the globe, or perhaps she met you once in an Islamic center or in a masjid or an Islamic talk, and just because she's wearing hijab, you accept her friend request. You got to talk, how are you, salam alaikum, alaikum salam, why you didn't come last Sunday, and you start developing a relationship with a stranger, and then you end up having an affair. I'm talking from examples from the community, and because I'm counseling people, so they come and talk to me this way. So unless you protect yourself from these outsider attack on your faith, then you will fall, whether in pornography or any other thing.
So we have that issue as Muslims, as in our society we should preserve it, make sure it's protected from such negative influences in wider society. But I wanted to ask also on a general level, as in it affects non-Muslims as well. Is there anything besides this lack of protection that can make someone fall into that? Like any internal issues which draws someone to it?
There are a lot of, as I mentioned, that this is, to me, for the Muslim community, is the biggest reason.
Yes.
Our loose...
the lack of protection, yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
so this is for Muslims. But there are a lot of other reasons. Some of them is loneliness, boredom. You've got nothing to do. You're just lying down in the bed, staring at the ceiling.
Yeah.
And so you will have to, okay, let's go on YouTube. What you're going to watch on YouTube to fill up this boredom time? All right, songs perhaps, or maybe clips of certain movies, and your intention from the beginning was just regular stuff, and then you see a clip that has some provocative scene, and that will lead you to hardcore. We have in Islam the solution, even to non-Muslims who are falling into this addiction, that don't be alone. Always surround yourself with righteous company, people who will invite you to do what is right. We can't win over these temptations on our own as an individual. You can't. It's difficult. Unless you are a prophet like Yusuf alayhi salam, when he was tempted by the wife of Al-Aziz, what did he do? He ran the opposite direction. Will you be able to run when somebody is tempting you like that, or seducing you? So do yourself to be surrounded with the righteous company, whether you are a Muslim or not, doesn't matter. Be with those people who encourage you to do that productive, beneficial work. Otherwise, the internet is on our fingertip. You can, pick and choose whatever type of porn you want to watch.
It's easy for males to fall into that, because every male, I think, growing up has that period where they're just alone on the computer.
Yeah, absolutely.
As in,
Absolutely.
it's just an experience, I think, in high school, university.
Yeah, as I said earlier, men and women are open for this attack.
Women as well, yeah.
But statistically speaking, more men are addicted to pornography than women.
It's interesting that you mentioned that we get engaged with YouTube videos and TV shows because, you know, like we're seeing now that the standards of what pornography is are being like drawn out even further now. So things that we would have considered back in the late 90s as PG, even now it has contained like provocative or sexual content that may trigger these urges, you know? And just by seeing like these trivial things like, oh, like it's PG, never mind, you know, we belittle the effect of these YouTube clips or these movies or TV shows.
One of my teachers taught me something very, very precious. It's a gold. To me, it was a gold. He said, be careful of something called ilf al-ma'asiyah. Be careful of something called getting accustomed to the sin being committed by others, not by you. So be careful of looking at the billboards around everywhere, people half naked. Be careful of the commercials. They called innocent commercials. We advertise, you know, some products. But every advertisement now doesn't, you know, exclude women. They have to bring a woman, and the woman has to be wearing in a different, you know, in a particular fashion. All these things, as you mentioned, are triggers. So be careful, because once your eyes get accustomed to the sin committed around you, then you are also, you know, you will be tempted to actually, or you will tend to act out what you have seen. So in the long run, if you don't protect your, again, coming back to self-protection, if you don't protect your eyes, your gaze from looking at the sins committed around you, you will one day definitely also fall into the sin.
In terms of the statistics between men and women, do you feel like one of the root causes is that this flirtatious culture? Like it's fun to be flirtatious. And because men like to flirt to attract the opposite gender, that's just what it's been told to us for years and years.
Men by nature, they are more sexually active than women. So perhaps this is one of the main reasons that they are more addicted to pornography and sexual activities than women.
And yeah, I think it links to what you said earlier about the example of the man who sees a contact or a message pops up from a female.
Immediately he runs after.
Yeah, I feel like just because we've been growing up in this idea that being flirtatious, and it's not looked down, being flirtatious, because it's thought of as being nice. You're being nice, you're being approachable.
Yes.
But it's one for us on the deen. It demands us, we have to be businesslike with the conduct of the opposite gender.
I mean, of course, we are not also taught to isolate completely the opposite gender from existence. I mean,
you can't do extremes with extremes.
We can't be extreme in dealing with our sisters and the opposite gender. We have to interact and communicate and cooperate, but with limitations. That's what we are saying. Like today, I had a course. I had a talk for sisters only,
right.
And we were talking about marriage. The talk ended, and I left the room. No, he, who, and how are you doing, and where are you from, and how long you've been here. And don't give a chance to these kind of conversations, because it's unnecessary and it could lead to something else, right? So be clear, whether man or woman. You be clear. Why are you attending the class? For example, in the case of this class that I had this afternoon, why did I go? What is my intention going to a sisters only class?
Right.
All right, the sisters came into the class. Why are you there? Unless you're very clear about your intention. We were talking about the why before coming, right? Unless you're clear about the why, you will most definitely do something wrong because you're not clear.
Just ask further about that isolation point, as in you don't want to be at the point where you're isolated completely from the opposite gender. That I think may be a big issue, because you probably know this better than me, but the statistics for pornography usage is high in Muslim countries where they are completely isolated from the female gender, and so their only way of escaping that, I would guess, is through pornography, and they sort of end up on the extreme end where they're seeing some of the most. Actually,
I know that there was a rumor going around that some Muslim countries are the highest of using internet pornography and all that, but it's not true. I have the latest statistics here with me just to show you, but that doesn't mean that we have also
no problem.
No problem. We have big problems. So I'll share with you some statistics. For example, we have the countries with biggest share of adult websites. Yes, Muslim countries are on the top here. So we have Iraq, we have Egypt, we have also, Iraq and Egypt on the top of this category. We have countries with the longest average session time, like sitting. We have Kuwait on the top, we have Saudi Arabia, we have Qatar.
This
We
is
have
what I
big
was
problem,
saying,
but
yeah.
we are not, alhamdulillah, we don't produce.
Yeah.
We just use the... So the point is, yes, I agree in a sense that because in certain countries, not all Muslim countries, Muslim men are completely isolated from...
Like in those Arab countries, I think.
Yes,
The
you'll find this issue. But again, it's lacking of Islamic education. Even though it's Muslim countries, we call it Muslim countries, but there is a huge lack of education about how to interact, how to mingle with the opposite gender, what should be done, what are the ethics. All these are not taught. We are just taught not to do. Simple as that. Don't communicate. So that creates curiosity. So perhaps this
Oh, but the curiosity created.
because you keep on telling them, no, don't deal, don't talk, don't deal. Why is never mentioned. It's exactly like when we grow up learning that salah is very important. You have to pray, otherwise you go to hell if you don't pray. But why do we pray? Nobody explained the wisdom behind the prayer. You understand?
Yeah.
So we need to educate and practice that. And while we educate our children, we practice with them the teaching. And as a result, we will create an awareness. I talk to my children who are 14 and 9 about the danger of pornography. I talk to them from that age because I know if I don't talk, somebody else will talk to them in a different way. So at least now when somebody else introduced to them pornography, they will be aware, oh, my daddy told me that this is something could cause addiction, and addiction is something really bad. So they will at least have some knowledge of the danger of pornography. Whether they do it or not, this is now something not in my hand, right?
Yeah.
But I have done my part.
Yes.
So, and this is an advice I'm giving to all parents. You have to raise awareness about amongst your kids about the danger effects of pornography.
Right.
So alongside that protective barrier we need for our community, we also need that education. So those are two of the key things. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's why I insist, like those who are listening to us, please reach me out if you wanted to organize a course in your area where we can educate you and give you all the necessary knowledge so that you can raise awareness on our behalf later on, and we widen the circle and we reach out more people to raise awareness about the danger of pornography and what it could cause.
So, and we'll provide the details for Shaykh Wael's emails and other contact details on the show notes, inshallah. Also, you mentioned about family, and that leads into what I want to bring the discussion to, how the root cause of prolonged pornographic addiction is through poor family dynamics. Like, it ties with what you were exploring earlier with domestic violence. So could you shed light on that and what you find?
So a couple of cases that I have encountered who have issues related to pornography, and one of them is aggression, because the husband would look at pornography and then he tried to act out the same thing that he had seen with his wife, and that ended up injuring the wife, beating her up during intimacy, because that's what pornography teaches. And the actors and the actresses in these filthy films are trying to pretend that they are enjoying the beating. So the actresses will be, pretending that this is something good, and so the husband, when he see that, so this might be something good for my wife, and then he start beating up his wife. So the wife came with blue, her body is blue because of
bruises.
Yes, with bruises, and she was emotionally hurt. Not just physically, emotionally, man. So these are some of the effects, because neuroscientists told us that the more visual images or movies we see, most likely we tend to act out when similar situations occur. So what we see in movies, like the love stories in the movies that we Ahmed loves Mona, and Ahmed keep on singing to Mona, and Mona keep on meeting Ahmed behind her family. And all these things happen in real life. Why? Because who inserted these ideas in our children? The movies. So the things we watch act on our brain like drugs, and so your brain will seize the opportunity to remind you of acting out that scene, because you remember you saw your favorite actor, the one that you love, the one that you idolize. He did the same thing. He told her, I love you, so why don't you say I love you? She left her family for his sake. Why don't you leave your family for his sake? And shaitan, of course, will come and spice up all the thing. And as a result, people will run away from their parents' house for the sake of their boy and girlfriends. Zina will be committed because of what they see on the movies. You understand? So this is one. On another occasion, a man, a very old man of over 60 years, he came to me and he said that he's addicted to pornography. He heard about my work from someone and he came to talk to me and say, 60 years, come on. He said, I've been addicted for 43 years. I said, bro, 43 years, there was no internet. Like, how were you addicted? He said, no, I was a photographer. And I used to go on the top of the buildings and, zoom in into people's houses and take pictures of people perhaps changing their clothes. And that was his pornography back then. Because porn differ from one person to another. There are some people, their pornography is soft porn. Some are hardcore, and it depends on your taste and so on and so forth. That's what's important for those people who wanted to recover from this, is to be open with a professional counselor about really how the history behind your addiction, how did it happen in the first place. Some people were traumatized by their father, by their role model, like this man, who was called by his daughter. Okay. So 43 years being addicted, at the end he was called by his daughter, the wife got to know, and divorce happened because of pornography. Right. So you see, when you talk about family, complete destruction. Wives are complaining to me that they've been betrayed. Why, sister, what happened? He watched pornography, what's wrong with me? So it even leaves an impression on the sister that she's not good enough, that she's not beautiful enough. That's why her husband is... Actually, this is also, again, I wanted to comfort our sisters who are listening. This is not true. This is not true. You're not less beautiful. You are not, you are good enough for your husband. You are halal enough for your husband. But what happened is, he's addicted, sister. He's out of control. So you need to help him. If you want to maintain the marriage, you need to help him. And in order to help him, you need to understand what addiction is all about. Yeah.
And also to add to that, the consideration where if you're living under a family where you're a teenage or a young adolescent and you grew up in an environment that's full of domestic violence and this negative, harsh environment, grounds for this addiction to propagate as well, right? They escape from this negative environment to this your own.
Because these addiction. This pornography releases certain chemicals and hormones in our brain that are responsible for relaxation and feeling good and feeling high and feeling nice and feeling happy and feeling excited. Like the dopamine, for example, this is one of the hormones that normally is produced when you watch these things, these exciting things. And just today, a sister was telling me, a very young sister was telling me that she don't want to marry because she sees her father how badly treated her mother for a long time. So she hated marriage. This could be a trigger for her to search on the internet for something to make her feel better. And pornography is there just like a buffet, pick and choose, as I said earlier. So it can destroy families. And when I say that, people laughed in the beginning. When I started, I told them it can destroy families. Say, how could pornography? It's an individual act, man. Someone with his computer. How could this lead to a destruction of the family? Here we go. People got divorced, right? People are now having empty relationship because the wife is totally lost trust in her husband.
Just desensitized everything.
Yes, even if the husband, one of the cases I dealt with is the husband. Because addiction, also for people who are listening or are unaware of how pornography or where pornography is leading you to, it leads you to escalation of the addiction, meaning that pornography for you will not be enough anymore to provide you the satisfaction that you used to experience. Right. So what will you do? You will escalate. You will start finding out about prostitution houses. You start going to dirty massage houses, and in there, this case that I'm dealing with, he suffered a sexual transmitted diseases, and he transferred that to his wife. So don't you think that it's a time for us to stand up and talk about it? And we are talking about Muslim community. I'm trying to focus on Muslims and non-Muslims at the same time. But I'm a Muslim and I have a solution from a spiritual, perspective. That's why I'm offering that to the Muslims. Yeah. Non-Muslims are most welcome to try out.
Of course.
But what I'm saying is, if we have these examples, and if that sister was courageous enough to open up to me her problem with her husband and bring her husband with her, how many thousands around there who are not courageous to open up and talk? How many of them are suffering in silence? And the reason why they are suffering in silence is that we are not addressing the issue. We keep on burying our heads in the sand, pretending that we are the best community in the world. We need to open up. We have serious problem, and it's okay to have problem. What is not okay is not to address the problem.
Of course.
That's my strategy. Yeah.
So, Sheikh, I wanted to ask you about the specifics of how does this sort of cycle of addiction work? I've heard that pornography addiction is similar to other addictions, as in you get caught in that vicious cycle. You engage in the sin, you try not to do it, and then you relapse. Can you tell us exactly how that works? As in, why does someone go back to it even though they're trying their best not to?
All right. I will try to simplify. I don't want to go technical, but I will try to simplify as much as I can. So any addiction of any sort follows the same pattern. First is the exposure to that particular activity. And once you're exposed to something that you liked, you enjoyed, what happened? An immediate pathway is created in your brain. A pathway particularly for this activity. Like you like sugar, you like sweet food, your brain will immediately create that pathway, and every time you drink your tea, if it has less sugar than what you used to, what do? You go and add sugar.
Yeah.
Who actually gave you that signal? Who gave you that? Your brain, because you have a pathway already for the sugar. By the way, sugar, white sugar, brown, whatever sugar, sweet food is also addictive. So once that exposure happened and the pathway is being created, the dopamine will be produced from time to time to remind you, hey, you remember there's a pathway empty here, needs some, reward, needed some activity. So the exposure to the activity, and then the justification happens, like, you struggle. If you're a man of faith, you start struggling between, like, shall I do it, shall I not, shall I do it, shall I not? It's haram, it's, and then the justification phase started by saying to yourself, it's better than zina.
I think also it's reinforced by the action, the masturbation.
Yes, so it's better than zina. So I watch, masturbate, because it's better than zina. And then comes a dark phase, and that is the regret. So subhanAllah, the pleasure of porn remains for a few seconds. Only few seconds. But the shame and the pain and the guilt remain for much longer. Much longer. Dark secret. I meet people who would cry to me over the phone, because they can't get rid of, of the fact they have disobeyed Allah while listening to Adhan al-Fajr. They are listening. The Adhan is there next door. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. God is the greatest. Come to pray. Come. And they couldn't, because the addiction is overpowering them.
Right.
So once they relapse, once they go ahead with the activity, comes the guilt phase, and then comes another phase called false quitting. They will start saying, I will never do that again in my life. And then they quit for a week, 2, and then they do not prevent themselves from the triggers which led them to the activity in the first place, like the YouTube videos, the Facebook chatting with the opposite gender. They didn't protect themselves anymore. They not lowering the gaze. All these are triggers. So because they didn't protect themselves from the triggers, the trigger will come along the way. The dopamine will be popped up. They will relapse. They will go back again into the same cycle, like a rat in the lab. The rat, they give him cheese, and the rat goes and take a bite, and then go back again to the starting point, and then go again to get. He already realized that there is a cheese here. That's the reward, but the home is at the beginning of the start.
Right.
Yeah. He goes into this maze. How many times? All his life, until he dies. In the lab. Yeah, and if they remove the cheese, the mouse will just go back and forth into the same cycle. It becomes his addiction, right? So similarly, if you don't prevent yourself from getting exposed to the triggers that leads to the relapse, why would you quit? You will keep going back again and again.
What would you say the triggers are then? Is it like anything that you see in society that sort of...
There are many. There are sexual triggers, and these are the obvious ones: watching inappropriate movies, watching MTV songs, watching even innocent, what we call innocent Hollywood, Bollywood movies. All these things have got sexual triggers in them, right? So that leads to thinking of the hardcore, because now you need more doses, right? But there are non-sexual triggers that we briefly talked about earlier, and that is boredom, loneliness, isolation. All these are non-sexual triggers that could lead to the same activity. So we need to prevent them from happening. The staying alone with your cell phone, staying alone with an internet device, all these things could lead to relapses.
Yeah.
Some people, I understand that they need their computers, they need their devices for assignments, for university work, and do it so in the presence of your family. So take your laptops outside the house and let everyone actually have a visual spot of what you're doing. Otherwise, you will relapse easily.
So Josh, on triggers, I think this is what's in our deen as well. Like if we eat a lot with the feel, that kind of enhances our desires. Because that goes, like if we deprive ourselves, or we fast, then that decreases our desires for acting out sexually. So the opposite does apply, right?
These are the preventions from becoming addicted.
So you feel like
so the Prophet ﷺ, when he gave the advice of fast, because fasting curbed the desire, he was talking to people who are not addicted to sex and intimacy outside the wedlock, the marriage.
So it's not beyond the transgression limits.
Once you're addicted, fasting doesn't work. Because I know people in Ramadan,
people say fasting.
in Ramadan, while fasting in Ramadan, they will relapse, they will watch porn, because they are addicted already long before fasting. They are addicted. So they needed to be treated differently first, before getting into that phase of course, if they can fast, alhamdulillah, good and fine, but it's not a solution at that stage. So the Prophet ﷺ advice was given to youth, youngsters, who were not exposed to the nudity that we are exposed to today. He was giving them advice that marriage, if you are able to, is a good solution for you to curb your desire and to stay away from illegal activities. But they were not addicted to sex. They were not addicted to porn.
So now that the limits have been transgressed, we need to bring it back first, and then we can do the Islamic...
To sort out the brain addiction.
The damage with the brain.
To change the habits, to change the cycle, to break the routine. Otherwise, it will remain the same.
I was wondering if there could be other triggers. Say, for example, with someone addicted to sort of cocaine or ice, like substances, they don't have any particular triggers, I would think. Like, it's not even loneliness. Even when they're in society and they haven't had their drug for a while, they still crave it. Do you know what I mean? As in, it seems like they feel bad for wanting it, and so because of that feeling bad, they need something to feel better again.
Substance addiction, cocaine, heroin, and all these things, they're physical addiction.
Physical.
Like your body will be actually in pain. You'll feel, that's what I heard, and according to some research, you'll feel like actually knives are cutting into your veins and nerves because you don't get your fix at a particular time.
Like an agitation, like smoking.
So that's enough trigger for you to get up and even commit a crime. People can commit a crime, wal'ayadhu billah, if they're addicted to drugs.
Yeah.
And that's why when you go to a rehab for substance addiction, sometimes they tie them up, they handcuff them because they go violent. With regards to pornography and other internet addiction, like there are people who are addicted to social media. I read a research that people are actually touching their touch screen devices without actually reading anything. They became addicted to even the touch itself. Scroll down. They don't read anymore. The sense of touch, the smoothness of this. So visual addiction is completely different. However, there is one pattern they follow. The addiction follows the same pattern of the dopamine, the chemical reaction. So according to latest research, pornography addicts, the brain reacts to porn in the same way how it reacts to cocaine and heroin. So it follows the same pattern of being controlled by your brain,
right?
But the consequences are different.
From the pathway sort of thing.
Yes.
As in, it's the visual is different from the physical. That's what you're saying.
Yes. The triggers. When it comes to triggers, also the triggers for substance addiction could relate to the company that you are taking drugs with. So once you meet a friend or a person whom you used to take drugs with, that will be a trigger, even if you don't feel the pain.
Yeah.
That we explained earlier. So that could be a trigger for a person to go for more.
I want to explore the spiritual impacts on the porn addiction a bit more, and then we can delve into prevention points or the attitudes that we as dawah carriers or activists should have. I want to explore how you didn't make mention that when you're exposed to these images and you're acting it out, then you go to salat, then it kind of just reoccurs as well. But how about you conduct yourself throughout your days, like your interactions with the opposite gender, or how you treat your kids, or how do you seek knowledge, for example, or you do your religious duties? Like, how does that impact? Does it Do you feel like you've seen cases where it lessens their resolve or their attitude? Like they kind of just like, oh, I don't know, I feel I'm not worthy of Allah's mercy, and then they just panic and then just like retreat to themselves and then...
I will talk about the solution rather.
Okay.
The Islamic solution or the spiritual solution that Islam had given us. And then I will mention a few examples who did not follow that guideline and as a result what happened to them. Because everyone is different. There are many people who react to this in a different way. Some people will be actually increasing their acts of worship.
Okay.
But it will take them like 6 months, 7 months sober, and then they will relapse again.
Right.
Because they thought that because I quit for 6 months, I'm strong now to stand on my own. So he starts slipping back into his bad habits of olden days. Okay, just one clip. A little bit, because I've been sober, man, for 6 months. In Islam, you have to maintain a way of life for life. You can't have an Islamic way of life for some time. You know, Islam is not part-time job. Islam is 24 hours a day job. Either you be a Muslim in full, or you are joking. You're still a Muslim. We're not, alhamdulillah, we're not telling anyone. You're still a Muslim, but you are a yo-yo Muslim. Sometimes Muslim, sometimes not really. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So unless you follow the guidelines given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger, Islam to me is like, this will give a clear picture.
Okay.
Islam to me is like, or addicts to me, like people are standing at the entrance of a dark tunnel, all right? And they can see light at the end of the tunnel, yeah? They wanted to walk, but there are a lot of glasses, broken glasses, metal parts, nails, all these objects on the ground, that there is no way for you to remove them. You have to walk on them. What you gonna do about that? You'll have to walk anyway, but you'll have to walk very carefully. You will have to little bit, remove what you can, spot, because it's very dark. You might get a bit poked by a nail or hurt by a piece of glass, but at the end you will reach safely. That's the condition of a Muslim. The whole dunya is that dark tunnel. This is the dunya that we're living in. It's not rosy. It's not something that is smooth. It's full of these surrounding, full of these. So the main reason why we fall into sin is because we are not careful about these glasses and nails and all. We just step on them and we don't care. And we say, inshallah, we will get healed later, inshallah. Even the brothers who are smoking and killing themselves through cigarette, when you tell them, brother, when are you going to quit? Right. Say, pray for me. While he's actually blowing the smoke in your face, he'll tell you, pray for me. And many of them have died just, with cancer, diseases and all that. So this is the condition of Muslims in general, and particularly addicts. Unless you are careful of what you're stepping on, you will never reach to the end of the tunnel. You will never see the light. You will remain in the dark within these harmful objects. So Islam gave us a guideline that I wanted to speak about it so briefly, inshallah. A spiritual solution. Look at, subhanallah al-azim, the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they have faced a lot of trials. A lot of trials. Compared to the sexual triggers, it's nothing. The Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was thrown literally in the fire. What is that compared to your challenge of accessing pornography? Nothing. True or false? It's nothing. But what did he say? Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. He said, Allah is sufficient for me, and He is the disposer of all affair. And because of his full trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the angel Gabriel, according to some narration, came down to him and he said, what do you need from me? He said, from you I don't need nothing. Allah is sufficient for me, and He's the disposer of all affair. If we could rely upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that much, even while we are sinning, Allah will solve our problems. But do we really rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Look at the Prophet Muhammad said, لَوْ أَنَّكُمْ تَتَوَكَّلُونَ عَلَى اللَّهِ حَقَّ تَوَكُّلِهِ. If you were to rely on Allah as He should be relied upon, truthfully, honestly, He will provide for you in the same way how He provided to the hungry birds who flew in the morning with empty stomach and returned back with their belly full. Meaning, if you relied on Allah tawakkul, that concept of tawakkul.
Yeah.
If you really relied on Allah properly by obeying Him, by following His commands, by staying away from the sickness of why Allah does this, why Allah does that, by fully submitting yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala,
Right.
Allah also. So there are a lot of things that we'll talk about in the course. Hopefully, inshallah, people who are listening will bring that course to life in their areas. But there are a lot of Islamic solutions we can discuss, inshallah, along the discussion here.
So there's one solution that I've really found beneficial just by hearing the impact. There was a talk by Shaykh Wael Ibrahim, and he proposed this solution for any person that's addicted. So he's like, if you find yourself in a situation, a compromising situation because of the sin, make wudu and pray 2 rak'at. So this applies with what we're discussing now. So if you're looking, so we're always told like the primary thing to do is to lower our gaze in terms of how do we conduct ourselves with the opposite gender. So if you find yourself, looking at somebody like with lustful eyes, and or even on extreme cases, like you find yourself like in the situation where you're about to engage with watching pornography, you're in the awareness about, oh, this is bad, I gotta quickly make wudu and make 2 rakats. You build that new habit, and inshallah that.
Yes, it's so difficult with addiction though. Again, acts of worship are very important to emphasize to addicts, but it's like the starting point.
Okay.
Like I will be talking about salah, for example, inshallah ta'ala, in the course, where I'm spending significant time of my course just talking about the first 2 ayah of Surat Al-Mu'minun. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. Successful believers are those who actually pray while concentrating, not just praying, but praying while really focusing on what they're saying. So it's important to bring the addicts into the habit of worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is very important, but it's not the ultimate solution. It has to be also addressed from different other perspectives. So, for example, we have to identify the sources of the relapse. Why are you relapsing? Tell me your story. If he tells you that, I always watch pornography past midnight, which is majority of the people who are addicted, they watch past midnight, then you have to tell him to sleep early, because that will disrupt the habit of staying up late, and as a result your brain, even if it pops up with dopamine, you're sleeping. Some people say, but I cannot sleep, Come on, you cannot sleep? When are you gonna strive hard to sleep earlier? When are you going to find solution for yourself? So those who find for themselves excuses not to recover from this addiction, it's up to them now. You can't help them anymore. You're giving them the right methodology. Pray hard. Pray these 2 rak'ah, pray 100 rak'ah if you can. But along with these prayers, you have to protect yourself from other things. Sleep early so that you can disrupt the habit. Wake up early and don't sleep after, Fajr. Because the Prophet ﷺ said that the barakah or the blessing, is found in these early hours of the day for my ummah. So seize the opportunity to become productive, beneficial to others during those hours. Achieve what no one have achieved. You can achieve whatever you want in these first 2-3 hours of the morning. And when you see yourself becoming productive, most likely your self-worth will increase, and you will start, your resistance system will increase. Your fighting system will increase against the relapses and so on. So there are a whole bunch of things to be considered, not only prayers, not only fasting, not only, going out in the masjid. All of these are important with the spiritual, solution. But along with this, there are some practical things that have to be in place.
And Shaykh, you spoke near the beginning of the show. You said about replacing habits. What did you mean by that exactly? So, in place of the act, someone has to start new things that they do?
I just mentioned an example. For example, if you are doing because normally, most likely, your brain will remind you to execute the activity at the same time when you started forming the habit, and that will happen all the time. Yeah, so that's why we said now, if that's the case, if you are watching past midnight, then disrupt that habit, replace that habit by the habit of sleeping early. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Some people say, but I watch in the afternoon. Okay, so in the afternoon you have to be in a coffee shop drinking coffee and doing your work in public.
Yeah.
That should be your habit. But don't ever stay at home during the time, because that once you are alone, you're most likely gonna relapse. Even if you succeeded once, the second will be more intense because the dopamine will increase. And the problem with the dopamine is that when it increases, and you don't have that fix, you don't have that satisfaction, then what happens? It drops. And when it drops, you become depressed, you become anxious. And depression and anxiety are two triggers as well for going back to the habit. So what do you do about this? Because you need to stop quitting anyway. You have to replace that satisfaction and reward of pornography with something else that could provide the same satisfaction. So, for example, if you like reading, spend more time reading. If you like sport, engage in more sport activities. But find something that you love doing. You love arts, go and do arts. Whatever you love doing, any hobby you have, fulfill that part of getting a reward, satisfactory reward, so that you can easily replace it with the intensity of pornography and
so there has to be a different pathway that you make for yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the neuroscience said that you can form a habit within 21 days if you consistently do the act. Some they say 40 plus days, some they say 68 days. So it depends from one person to another how strong you are to form a habit. And you can form whether a bad habit or a good habit within these days if you consistently follow through.
Alright, Jazakallah khairan for your time, Shaykh.
Wa iyaakum, brother.
SubhanAllah, we've learned a lot from this talk, and inshallah the listeners have benefited. So I understand, Shaykh, you have a few books that you published. Would you like to make mention of them?
Yes, I wrote a couple of books actually. Some of them are already available for anyone to download and to obtain for free. Two of them are available for sale. One is called Change, which is a 30 days program following that method of building up new habits. So it's 30 days plan, what you should do every single day, what decision you should make every single day for 30 complete days.
So it's got a practical plan for people to
Yes, and that is based on Quran and Sunnah completely. The second book is the recent one, is called Beat It, 50 plus shades of hope, in response to 50 plus shades of stupidity that are out there encouraging people to do filthy stuff. So this is just telling the people that there are strategies you could use to break the cycle, and there are hope if you just if you're really serious about getting rid of this issue. And it consists of 12 chapters, strategies. This is based also, my course is based on that particular book. So both of them are available for sale. Those who wish to contact me, inshallah, I can send them the link, because the link is not now ready with me. But you can visit my Facebook, you can send me a private message or an email. Alhamdulillah, I have a couple of brothers who are very dedicated to these emails, because they are coming in the thousands now, and they will send you, inshallah, the links from where you can purchase the books, inshallah.
So I want to ask, just in conclusion, like, you've definitely seen many success stories of brothers and sisters who've
absolutely
like gone through everything you've told them and just sort of beaten that addiction.
Alhamdulillah. So you want to listen?
Yeah, like as in,
so
are there any particular ones that strike you?
So all, but by the way, the Beat It book, the recent one, is all based on life experience with addicts.
Yes.
Some of the concepts are borrowed from experts, and I simplified it. And by the way, every chapter, although this book is written from a secular perspective in the sense that there is no Quran or Hadith reference, but it's all based on Islam.
Based on Islam, yeah.
And the course, which is based on the book, I'm bringing all the references into place. So this is one thing just I wanted to mention. So some people will take all the 12 steps or all the 12 strategies and then break free. Some will only work on one strategy. That will be the one thing that will actually help them. Like a brother, for example, he took the acceleration tip in the class. And the acceleration tip is when you find yourself already sober for quite some time that you never actually experienced before. Like some people say, I am now 3 months sober. This is the longest time ever. Then don't surrender to that. Don't sit back and relax and celebrate. No. Relapses could strike at any time. So rather go with full force as a productive person. Do whatever it takes to fill up your time and become very productive. Don't go home unless you are tired and you wanted to sleep. You wanted to drop. You have no time for Facebook and you just want to go sleep. So this brother, subhanAllah, he told me this strategy. He told me that he did business in China, buying and selling, and the business became successful. And then he started, okay, what after success? What could I do now? He said, I recorded a course, 10 videos, teaching people how to do business from China. The same thing that he did, He just converted it into a course, and he started selling the course at $49. And he said that within 14 days, 2 weeks, 7,000 people registered for the course.
Wow.
And that made him more busy. And he started, doing this. He became actually an expert consultant for people who actually wanted to do business online, just teaching them what he had experienced. So filling up your activities, that was one of the strategies that made this brother completely free. There is a sister also who, mashallah, tabarakallah, she, number one, she told her mom. So 50% of the cure, I said.
Yeah.
And this sister was studying abroad, so she was not from that particular country.
Yes.
And she called her mom overseas, and she told her that I'm messed up. I cannot study. I cannot focus. And this is one of the effects of porn addiction. It destroys your focus from whatever more important things or important tasks that you should be doing. And the mom flew all the way from her country to save her daughter.
Yeah.
And as a result, alhamdulillah, the girl now, mashallah, has been over a year sober. Yes, there will be a lot of withdrawal symptoms. There are withdrawal symptoms. People will feel headache. People will feel lower back pain. People will feel like lacking energy, flashbacks. All these things are symptoms of withdrawal symptoms that could bother you in the beginning, in the initial stage of the recovery.
Right.
But it will all go away, inshallah.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khairan again, and inshallah.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Thank you for
hope
this
that this will be
yeah.
beneficial and productive for all the people who are listening. Thank you.
And all the very best for your future projects, inshallah.
Jazakumullah khairan, Jazakumullah khairan.
For all our listeners, Jazakallah khairan for giving us your attention. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to find us on Facebook. Please leave a 5-star rating on iTunes, as that helps us greatly. And so from our special guest, Shaykh Wael Ibrahim, as well as Trust myself, we wish you all the best. This is Aquib signing off. Assalamu alaikum.
وربطنا على قلوبهم إذ قاموا فقالوا ربنا رب السماوات والأرض لن ندعو من دونه إلها لقد قلنا إذا شططا هؤلاء قومنا اتخذوا من دونه آلهة لولا يأتون عليهم بسلطان بين فمن أظلم ممن افترى على الله كذبا